top with pretty Lavinia and unwed Henry, who brings about Hurricane Katrina and the price of progress. We will that Appalachian crab by the river's edge. There's a storm coming, but it ain't that Carolina drama. That's Alabama bound. It's murder ballads that's coming to town.
Jenny here with Country Diggers. Welcome to my speakeasy. Today we're going to be doing a request from D-Spud. Now, he wants me to do The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. So here we go. Okay, this is The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down by the band, and this is their lyrics. Now, I can sing the chorus, but I'm going to read the rest. Virgil Kane is the name, and I served on the Danville train till Stoneman's cavalry came and tore up the tracks again. In the winter of '65, we were hungry, just barely alive. By May the 10th, Richmond had fell. It's a time I remember oh so well. The night they drove old Dixie down, and the bells were ringing. The night they drove old Dixie down, and the people were singing. They went na 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 na. Back with my wife in Tennessee, when one day she called to me, said, "Virgil, quick come and see, there goes the Robert E. Lee." Now I don't mind chopping wood, and I don't care if the money's no good. You take what you need and you leave the rest. But they should never have taken the very best. The night they drove old Dixie down, and the bells were ringing. The night they drove old Dixie down, and the people were singing. They went na 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 na. Like my father before me, I will work the land, and my brother above me who took a rebel stand. He was just 18, proud and brave, but a Yankee laid him in his grave. I swear by the mud below my feet, you can't raise a cane back up when he's in defeat. The night they drove old Dixie down, and the bells were ringing. The night they drove old Dixie down, and all the people were singing. They went na 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 na. The night they drove old Dixie down, and the bells were ringing. The night they drove old Dixie down, and the people were singing. They went na 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 na. All right, that was lyrics by the band. And now on to the story. All right, that was the band's lyrics from The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. And I'll be reading from the aficionado.blog. And the title is The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down by the band. The late 60s saw a number of great artists looking back into the American past to find a new musical direction. Bob Dylan started the trend, releasing John Wesley Harding, the album that produced All Along the Watchtower. The Byrds followed with Sweetheart of the Rodeo, a classic of Americana, and the band released music from Big Pink, the record that influenced countless musicians. For the person who wrote this article, the song that best symbolizes that chapter in music history is the band's The Night That They Drove Old Dixie Down from their second album released in 1969, The Band. The song is a result of Robbie Robertson's research of the American Civil War. Levon Helm recalls, "Robbie and I worked on the song up in Woodstock. I remember taking him to the library so he could research the history and geography of the era. for the lyrics and make General Robert E. Lee come out with all due respect. It was another of those workshop songs we worked on a long time before we got it down. Robertson's take on the events that ripped the nation apart are not siding with any of the parties, but rather describe the sentiment and human suffering of a Confederate soldier at the end of and shortly after the war. Helm on that productive period of the band's songwriting. This was when we started having the beat on a lot of tunes, which gave us a distinctive thing. Instead of keeping full time rhythmically, we found if we halved the beat, we could lay the lyrics in a different place, and the pulse would be easier to move to, more danceable. And it made it easier for us to learn to really sing with one another and behind Richard. My problem was that I had to learn to sing and play in halftime meter at the same time. Robbie Robertson's recollections sheds more light on the writing of the song. There was a chord progression, and the melody rumbling through my head, but I did not know yet what the song was about. I played it on the piano one day for Levon. He liked the way it stopped and started, free of tempo. I flashed back to when he first took me to meet his parents in Marvell, Arkansas. And his daddy said, "Don't worry, Robin, the South is going to rise again." Don't all Southerners say that? But I told Levon I wanted to write lyrics about the Civil War from a Southern family's point of view. Don't mention Abraham Lincoln in the lyrics was his only advice. That won't go down too well. I asked him to drive me to Woodstock Library so I could do a little research on the Confederacy. They didn't teach that stuff in Canadian schools. When I conjured up the story about Virgil Caine and his kin against this historical backdrop, the song came to life for me. Though I did stop and wonder, can I get away with this? You call this rock and roll? Maybe. A little historical background on the people and events listed in the song. In the last days of the Civil War in 1865, with the defeat of the Confederate Army at Petersburg, Virginia, imminent, General Robert E. Lee advised Confederate President Jefferson Davis to evacuate Richmond, the Confederates' capital. Davis and his cabinet fled to Danville, Virginia, while the Union Army, led by Major General George Stoneman, was trying to capture him. General George Stoneman's Union cavalry ripped up the rails of the Richmond and Danville Railroad, a main Confederate supply route, to prevent reinforcements reaching Robert E. Lee's army during the siege of Petersburg. Robert E. Lee surrendered shortly after, on April 9th, at the Appomattox, and on May 10th, Davis was captured by the Union Army and Richmond fell. Robert E. Lee mentioned in the second verse of the song is a steamboat named after the general that was launched on the Mississippi River in 1866. On the Thanksgiving Day in 1976, the band performed their celebrated farewell concert on the event that was later released as the Lost Waltz 3 LP package, and as a movie directed by Martin Scorsese. The band completed a full circle with the last waltz, performing at Bill Graham's 5,400 capacity dance hall, Winterland, where they performed their debut live concert in April 1969. For the audience, the event was not just a live concert. It started as a full Thanksgiving dinner for thousands of people. Bill Graham organized a meal that consisted of 200 turkeys, 300 pounds of salmon, and 400 pounds of pumpkin pie, plus an orchestra playing waltzes and poets reciting their craft. Just before the show started, all the chairs disappeared from the dance floor and the band appeared on stage. I picked the version that the band played at the last waltz. The show featured a group of musicians that reads like the who's who of rock and roll and folk. Rock and folk. The page is too short to list them all, and they included Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan, Muddy Waters, Paul Butterfield, Van Morrison, Dr. John, and many more. The film is a must-see for anyone who is interested in creative forces of folk and rock music up to that point. Robbie Robertson said of the event, "Over the years, many journalists and others have commented on what a pivotal point it was in music and in their lives when they saw the Last Waltz movie." I'm going to have to watch that. I haven't watched it. Or heard the record. It was that fertile period in the 60s and 70s coming to a head. It was an end of an era. The spirit of those times turned a corner and never came back. The version of the song as performed at the Last Waltz is one for the ages. Robertson recalls it vividly. Right from the horns, a new free time intro reminiscent of "I Wish I Was in Dixie." I felt we were ready to take a flight. I don't know if I've ever heard Levon sing and play "The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down" better than on this night. Looking back at him while he was singing a verse, I saw the horns behind him looking like some kind of glorious funeral procession. His truth in that vocal could tear your heart out. And when we hit the final chorus, the roar of the crowd felt like it helped us lift the stage a foot higher. It took me back to when I first wrote the song, wanting to come up with something that Levon could sing better than anyone in the world. The concert was made into one of the best movie concert documentaries ever produced. The version here, the version in it that they're showing shows how emotional the concert was for the band, as demonstrated by Robertson's facial expressions and Levon Helm's singing. Well, hope y'all enjoyed that, and I hope you did, D-Spud. I know I can't sing very good, but hope you enjoyed. And the South will rise again one day.